Alright, let's see. Where were we? Traps, page 120. Hello, everybody. So, last week when we were delving into the Dungeon Master's Guide, I was guiding your way through the traps. This is part 2 of a two-part, I wouldn't say series, but it's 2 parts, and this is the second part. And in the first part, as I said, we were looking at traps. We were talking about what traps were in the context of Dungeons and Dragons, how to trigger a trap, how to disable them, detecting them, and their various effects and whatnot. Now, in part 2, we're going to go into specific examples. Sample traps, as they are called. So, the magical and mechanical traps presented here vary in deadliness and are presented in alphabetical order. Collapsing roof is a mechanical trap. This trap uses a tripwire to collapse the supports, keeping an unstable section of a ceiling in place. The tripwire is 3 inches off the ground and stretches between 2 support beams. The DC to spot the tripwire is 10. A successful DC 10 dexterity check using Thieves' Tools disables the tripwire harmlessly. A character without Thieves' Tools can attempt this check with disadvantage using any edged weapon or edged tool. On a failed check, the trap triggers. Now, I have a few things that I disagree but kind of agree with thus far. So, mechanically speaking, it says the DC to spot the tripwire is 10. Now, for those of you who play D&D 5e, you may have already spotted the problem here. In D&D 5e, characters have something called a passive perception check. Something they don't have to roll for, something they just have. It's a constant ringing radar. They don't have to go, what's going on? What's going on? Is there a trap in the room? No, it's just walking. Oh, there's a tree there in my way. I should go around it. It's that automatic level of perception. And the thing is, most characters, assuming they haven't got any obvious weaknesses or whatnot, should have their passive perception at a 10. Now, it says that the tripwire is 3 inches off the ground, so the average character will be able to see it and be able to avoid the trap quite easily, I would say, right? I don't think that's up for debate. Most characters can see it, avoid it. Now, it says you require a successful DC 15 dexterity check using Thieves' Tools to disable the tripwire harmlessly. Okay, I agree with this. I would also say so it says your character who uses an edged weapon or something like that, or edged tool, can do it at disadvantage. I am okay with this, with some exceptions. So if your weapon is enchanted specifically to cut through, cut through steel, like hot knife through butter, for example, then I'd be like, okay, that's fine. You don't have to roll disadvantage with that super magical mono-edge katana blade of darkness or whatever. If you have a pair of scissors, I would say that is fine as well. If you have party members holding each side of the wire while one of them cuts it in the middle, I would say you could roll at advantage. I suppose that would count as the help action, which cancels out disadvantages in the first place. So, either way. Now, moving along. Anyone who inspects the beams can easily determine that they are merely wedged in place. As an action, a character can knock over a beam, causing the trap to trigger. The ceiling above the tripwire is in bad repair, and anyone who can see it can tell that it's in danger of collapse. When the trap is triggered, the unstable ceiling collapses. Any creature in the area beneath the unstable section must succeed on a DC 15 dexterity saving throw, taking 22, which is the average of 4d10 dice, bludgeoning damage on a failed save, or half as much damage on a successful one. Once the trap is triggered, the floor of the area is filled with rubble and becomes difficult terrain. Now, I would also add in the effect that it's very loud when it collapses. I would narrate it as, okay, you guys walk across it, the tripwire snaps, and the ceiling comes down, you'll roll dice, take damage, yada yada. And I would also add on, the thunderous roar of the collapsing ceiling reverberates throughout the dungeon. You have alerted the horde. So that could help the players determine whether or not to trigger it or accidentally trigger it. Now, in my previous video, I've also mentioned that besides avoiding the trap or disarming it, you could also sabotage or use it for yourself. I suppose the last two can be used interchangeably at this point. So in this case, you could tie another piece of string to the support beams that would collapse, for example, and put in another place that the enemy wouldn't know about. So if they try to follow your characters in, like behind you, you'd have warning. Like, okay, you go past your trap that you set up. In the distance behind you, you hear it collapsing. You now know that there's someone behind you, after you. And of course, if it alerts people, it might make them come towards that area, drawing them off as a distraction. You could set up a little ambush, knowing that they probably wouldn't think that you're in an area ahead of where the trap is, for example. Lots of useful things you can do in, using this trap against the enemy. Now, on the fact that it's DC 10 to spot, I might make that a bit more difficult. That said, the fact that the people can see it, they can probably go, oh, there's a trap here. Let's try to avoid it. I think I also mentioned that traps shouldn't just be to punish or hurt people or even drive them off with pain or whatever, or kill them. They can also act as a deterrent. The same way that an electric fence, even though it would count as a trap in D&D, isn't hidden. It's not a hidden trap. It's obviously there out in the open, and there are ways around it and through it. For the most part, most people go, electric fence. Let's not mess with that. And not all traps are supposed to keep adventurers out. They could just be there to keep out the wild animals, the random civilian. You get the idea. Next trap, the falling net. It is a mechanical trap, as you might imagine. This trap uses a tripwire to release a net suspended from the ceiling. The tripwire is 3 inches off the ground and stretches between 2 columns of trees. The net is hidden by cobwebs or foliage. The DC to spot the tripwire and the net is 10, which, once again, you know that I don't agree with. In this case, I'd be okay with one of the elements being a DC 10, but the other one being more hidden. So once the players are like, oh, I spot one of the elements of the trap, but I can't tell what it's connected to or what it'll set off, can I make a active perception check? And I think that would be an interesting way to get players paranoid and in the right mindset that there are actual traps around. Make one of the traps obvious, and then the rest of the traps a bit harder to see, so they actually have to actively roll the dice. Now, generally speaking, an adventuring party can number anywhere between 3 to 10 people in theory. I would not recommend the 10-person party. 4 is generally what the ideal amount of people is. 4 to 6 is ideal, I'd say. Between the 4 to 6 people, at least one person, in theory, statistically speaking, should be able to roll high enough to see the rest of the traps. It's not always a guarantee, but it does make it more likely. So, moving along. A successful DC 15 dexterity check using Thieves' Tools breaks the tripwire harmlessly. A character without Thieves' Tools can attempt this check with disadvantage using any edged weapon or edged tool. On a failed check, the trap triggers. My advice for this is the same as I did for the collapsing roof. When the trap is triggered, the net is released, covering a 10-foot square area. Those in the area are trapped under the net and restrained, and those that fail a DC 10 strength saving throw are knocked prone. A creature can use its action to make a DC 10 strength check, freeing itself or another creature within its reach. On a success, the net has AC 10 and 20 hit points, dealing 5 slashing damage to the net, which has 10 AC, destroys a 5-foot section of it, freeing any creatures trapped in that section. Now, it doesn't say specifically, but it's obvious up to DM discretion when they used other damage types. For example, if you set the thing on fire, you probably don't have to roll to hit. You just bring a torch up. Now, you'd probably hurt the person in the net, but the net's probably going to go up pretty quickly, or pretty slowly, depending on what kind of net it is. It'll stay burning, but it'll be weakened. I would say, at the very least, reduce its hit points, reduce its AC. Keep in mind, if you roll below hitting AC, it doesn't mean you miss the target. It just means the target is hard enough that they don't take any meaningful amounts of damage. Fire-breathing statues. It's a magic trap. This trap is activated when an intruder steps on a hidden pressure plate, releasing a magical gout of flame from a nearby statue. The statue can be of anything, including a dragon or a wizard casting a spell. I've had one of these in one of my previous campaigns, and while it was never explicitly stated, in the background, one of the other characters who they brought in as their bartender chef guy actually used the fire trap in the dungeon they cleared out as a way to cook their food. It's kind of funny in my mind that way. The DC is 15 to spot the pressure plate, as well as faint scorch marks on the floor and walls. A spell or other effect that can sense the presence of magic, such as Detect Magic, reveals an aura of evocation magic around the statue, which is the same kind of magic used to cast Fireball and the like. The trap activates when there is more than 20 pounds of weight placed on the pressure plate, causing the statue to release a 30-foot cone of fire. Each creature in the fire must make a DC 13 dexterity saving throw, taking 22 damage, which is the average of 4d10, fire damage on a failed save, or half as much damage on a successful one. Wedging an iron spike or other object under the pressure plate prevents the trap from activating. A successful Dispel Magic, DC 13, cast on the statue destroys the trap. Now, this is pretty self-explanatory. I would also say that if it is a dragon, and depending on how you describe it, smushing something into the dragon's mouth could help funnel the flames away from the 30-foot cube cone, so that you can pass by, step on the pressure plate without the flame spewing on you. Instead, it could be redirected upwards, to the sides, basically make it safer. Next trap, the pits. It's a mechanical trap. 4 basic pit traps are presented here. The first one is a simple pit. It is a hole dug in the ground. Shocking, am I right? The hole is covered by a large cloth anchored on the pit's edge and is camouflaged with dirt and debris. The DC to spot it is 10. I once again don't agree with this. It should be higher. Anyone stepping on the cloth falls through it and pulls the cloth down into the pit, taking damage based on the pit's depth, usually 10 feet, but some pits are deeper. Now, hidden pit. This pit has a cover constructed from material identical to the floor around it. A successful DC 15 Wisdom Perception check discerns an absence of foot traffic over the section of floor that forms the pit's cover. I don't agree with this. Some floors don't show foot traffic. Like a barren piece of stone, for example, doesn't really show much foot traffic. Snow, if it gets covered consistently, won't show much foot traffic. Sands that shift in the winds don't show foot traffic. A successful DC 15 intelligence investigation check is necessary to confirm that the trap section of floor is actually the cover of the pit. When a creature steps over the cover, it swings open like a trapdoor, causing the intruder to spill into the pit below. The pit is usually 10 or 20 feet deep, but can be deeper. Once the pit trap is detected, an iron spike or similar object can be wedged between the pit's cover and the surrounding floor in such a way as to prevent the cover from opening, thereby making it safe to cross. The cover can also be magically held shut using the arcane lock spell or similar magic. I mean, generally speaking, a lot of characters I know just use lots of rope and make a little bridge across sometimes. Uh, Depending on how wide the pit is, they get one character to jump across, like if they're really athletic, and then they just help everyone else. Locking pit. This pit trap is identical to a hidden pit trap with one key exception. The trap door that covers the pit is spring-loaded. After a creature falls into the pit, the cover snaps shut to trap the victim inside. A successful DC 20 strength check is necessary to pry the cover open. The cover can also be smashed open. Determine the cover's statistics using the guidelines in Chapter 8. We'll go over that some other day. The character in the pit can also attempt to disable the spring mechanism from the inside with a DC 15 dexterity check using Thieves' Tools, provided that the mechanism can be reached and the character can see. In some cases, a mechanism, usually hidden behind a secret door nearby, opens the pit. Yeah, I like this one. I like this one. With a lot of pit traps, especially something like the locking pit with like doors that swing open and down, I would attach bells to it or some sort of sound device, and this will let the defenders of the dungeon, people who call the place home, know that they've caught something, right? I know that's not really a feature of real life traps, like if you have a rat trap. No, actually it kind of is. A rat trap just goes smack. It's pretty loud sometimes. You hear a snap. Okay, yeah, I like bells on my traps so they can hear when they're activated. And that just adds a little extra spice to the dungeon, I feel. If the players fall into a trap, they were like, oh shoot, we've got to get out. Oh, it alarmed? We definitely have to get out before they come. Otherwise, like, oh dang it, we're trapped in the pit. Alright, let's try all this stuff to get out. I mean, they probably know that, oh, anyone can come by at any time. But if it's alarmed, it'll be put at the forefront of their mind. They know, okay, we only have so much we can do before a fire. Let's go. Poison darts. Once again, a mechanical trap. When a creature steps on a hidden pressure plate, poison-tipped darts shoot from spring-loaded or pressurized tubes cleverly embedded in the surrounding walls. An area might include multiple pressure plates, each one rigged to its own set of darts. The tiny holes in the walls are obscured by dust and cobwebs or cleverly hidden amid bas-reliefs, murals, or frescoes that adorn the walls. The DC to spot them is 15. With a successful DC 15 intelligence investigation check, a character can deduce the presence of the pressure plate from the variations in the mortar and stone used to create it, compared to the surrounding floor, that is. Wedging an iron plate or other object under the pressure plate prevents the trap from activating. Stuffing the holes with cloth or wax prevents the darts contained within from launching. Now, we've gone through quite a bit already, and a lot of these traps are triggered with pressure plates or pieces of string. I'd say use them interchangeably. There's nothing that says this poison trap can't be triggered by a tripwire, for example. It also doesn't explain how many poison darts there are. Like with the fire-breathing statue, I assume that if you press it, take your foot off, press it, take your foot off, it'll keep going off and off and off again. The collapsing roof from earlier, I assume that's one shot only. Poison darts, it could go either way, really. The trap activates when more than 20 pounds of weight is placed on the pressure plate, releasing 4 darts. Each dart makes a ranged attack with a +8 bonus against a random target within 10 feet of the pressure plate. Vision is irrelevant with this attack roll because it's not trying to hit someone that can see, it's just hitting whatever it's pointed at. If there is no target in the area, the darts don't hit anything. A target that is hit takes 1d4 piercing damage and must succeed on a DC 15 Constitution saving throw, or take 2d10 poison damage on a failed save, but half as much damage on a successful one. I like these kinds of traps as a player character because I like the idea of looting poison darts. If I see a trap like this, I don't think, how do I disarm it, I think, how do I disarm it to loot it? I want those poison darts. I want those spring mechanisms. I want everything. And I'm glad that I have a dungeon master who will allow me to pull stuff like this sometimes. Moving along, poison needle. A poison needle is hidden within a treasure chest lock or in something else that a creature might open. Opening the chest without the proper key causes the needle to spring out, delivering a deadly dose of poison. It doesn't actually say deadly. I just like adding that bit because it sounds cool. When the trap is triggered, the needle extends 3 inches straight out from the lock. A creature within range takes 1 piercing damage and 11, on average, poison damage and must succeed on a DC 15 Constitution saving throw or be poisoned for 1 hour. Now, being poisoned in D&D 5e sucks. It means you roll disadvantage on a bunch of important stuff that you can normally roll, which, for those of you who don't know, means that you roll 2 dice and take the lower of the 2. Now, if I remember correctly, when you're poisoned, you can, in theory, roll Constitution saves again and again and again to try and purge it from your systems. But being poisoned means you roll disadvantage on those specific checks. If you're a dwarf, I believe you have some resistance to it. Don't quote me on that, but I believe dwarves, because they drink, they love ale and they're hardy folk, they're resistant against poison. A successful DC 20 intelligence investigation check allows a character to deduce the trap's presence from alterations made to the lock to accommodate the needle. Successful DC 15 dexterity check using thieves' tools disarms the trap, removing the needle from the lock. Unsuccessfully attempting to pick the lock triggers the trap. Now, these descriptions have a lot of notes on them, but keep in mind, in the previous section, it does say that depending on how you open the trap, what you do with it, having them triggered doesn't do anything. So if you have a 10-foot pole and you have a key attached to it and it's the wrong key and you twist it, this trap, even though it goes off, won't do anything. Rolling sphere mechanical trap. When 20 or more pounds of pressure are placed on this trap's pressure plate, a hidden trapdoor in the ceiling opens, releasing a 10-foot diameter rolling sphere of solid stone. I'm very disappointed that it's not a reverse pressure plate, something that activates when you take pressure off it. Though maybe they didn't put that there because of, copyright reasons. I don't actually know of the copyright status when it comes to that specific boulder. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. With a successful DC 15 Wisdom Perception check, a character can spot the trapdoor and pressure plate. A search of the floor accompanied by a successful DC 15 Intelligence Investigation check reveals variations in the mortar and stone that betray the pressure plate's presence. The same check made while inspecting the ceiling notes variations in the stonework that reveal the trapdoor. Wedging an iron spike or other object under the pressure plate prevents the trap from activating. Activation of the sphere requires all creatures present to roll initiative. The sphere rolls initiative with +8 bonus. On its turn, it moves 60 feet in a straight line. The sphere can move through creature spaces, and creatures can move through its space, treating it as difficult terrain. Whenever the sphere enters a creature's space or a creature enters the space while it's rolling, the creature must succeed on a DC 15 dexterity saving throw or take 10d10 bludgeoning damage, which is on average 55, which is a lot, and be knocked prone. So, for context, most, if not all level 1 characters probably have less than 20 hit points. I believe if you're a barbarian, you start with 12 by default. Depending on your race, you could have a bonus to your max hit points. If you rolled max for Constitution, that's another +4, maybe +5, once again, depending on race. So roughly the maximum would be 18. And it could be 21 if you really power game it. I suppose maybe. This is the far extreme of what a level 1 character can achieve. Assuming we're not going into like monsters and whatnot. So the fact that this thing can just outright kill just about every level 1 character if it runs them over, yeah, it's big. It says it knocks them prone. I would say depends on the character. I mean, for example, I doubt a 500-foot dragon would feel a boulder going into its ankle. It might hurt them, but I don't think they'd be knocked prone. Okay, that's wrong. Okay, I can imagine it now. I have stubbed my toe and been knocked prone because of that before. Just smack, big toe, fall on the ground. But it wouldn't be for the reason of like a boulder knocking you over. It's a different kind of prone. The sphere stops when it hits a wall or similar barrier. It can't go around corners, but smart dungeon builders incorporate gentle curving turns into nearby passages that allow the sphere to keep moving. I would allow players with high enough investigation check or maybe even insight check if they're traveling to this boulder room going, hang on, all the hallways and rooms are curved. Something's going on. As an action, a creature within 5 feet of the sphere can attempt to slow it down using a DC 20 strength check. Okay, the thing where I talked about the dragon not being knocked over. There we go. On a successful check, the sphere's speed is reduced by 15 feet. If the sphere's speed drops to 0, it stops moving and is no longer a threat. I would say for every 5 points over the 20 that they roll on their strength check, its speed is reduced by another 15 feet. Rolling DC 20 is pretty difficult. It's based on proficiency, it's based on your strength check, maybe other enhancement you've got. Yeah. Sphere of Annihilation. It's a magic trap. Oh boy. And this is a famous one. Magical, impregnable, impenetrable darkness fills the gaping mouth of a stone face carved into a wall. I apologize if I'm causing anyone PTSD here. Mouth is 2 feet in diameter and is roughly circular. No sound issues from it, no light can illuminate the insides of it, and any matter that enters is instantly obliterated. The successful DC 20 Intelligence Arcana check reveals that the mouth contains a sphere of annihilation that can't be controlled or moved. It is otherwise identical to a normal sphere of annihilation as described in Chapter 7, Treasure, which we will get to some other time. Some versions of the trap include an enchantment placed on the stone's face, such that specified creatures feel an overwhelming urge to approach it and crawl into its mouth. This effect is otherwise like the sympathy aspect of the antipathy/sympathy spell. A successful dispel magic removes the enchantment, but it does not remove the actual magical ball of nothingness. So that's pretty much all the sample traps in the Dungeon Master's Guide. I would also like to point something out. There could be a magical aspect keeping the trap from triggering itself when not activated. So it could be a magical pressure plate. And here's the thing. If the magical part of it is removed, it sets it off. So, for example, it could be some piece of rock that's wedged up against a giant boulder, and if the players move near it, the magical wedge removes itself and the boulder goes down. If they cast a spell magic and it disappears, boulder goes down. I like this idea because it stops all mages from just going, let's fix the issue by dispelling everything. I wouldn't do it too often because it could make your mages go, well, what's the point of my dispel magic spell then? And it really sucks to do that to people. Anyways, that's part 2 of my Dungeon Master's Guide to Traps. I hope you've enjoyed it. My name is Freebowitz. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and trap yourself within my channel. Bye-bye.